And we're live.
And we're live.
Conspiracy Files, episode 2.
Episode number 2.
So viewers and listeners, as you know, every single week we're going to come up with a conspiracy theory. I'm going to put one forward to Imran. Imran's going to put one forward to me. And none of us are going to know what is going to be put forward. So Imran, after discussing Mr. Ike last week, it was only proper to talk about the Illuminati.
Oh, Ramiz, you had to do it. You had to do it. You had to go there.
I had to do it, mate. I had to do it.
Pyramids are everywhere. This attic is pyramid
Yep.
shape.
Yeah.
With a light bulb on top.
Now, this needs to be a separate episode altogether. But some of the viewers and listeners may know at some point I was involved in music.
Right, okay.
So my understanding of Freemasons, Illuminati was very much similar to every other Muslim. And that was, we are controlled by certain powers and they control absolutely everything. So they are super wealthy, super powerful, the elite, and they control the world. And Jay-Z is a part of them. Obama is a part of them. Kanye West is a part of them. And the list goes on. Now, after having matured and after having read and listened to certain things, I'm going to share what I found with the listeners. I know. Maybe I've been recruited.
I was about to say, getting worried about you.
So anyway, on a serious note, I looked into the history of secret societies.
Wow, that's interesting. No, this is interesting.
So this is, I know you're going to like this.
Yeah.
I know you're going to like this. So basically, looking at 17th and 18th century Europe was going through a lot of changes. So the West was controlled, I would say, by Catholicism. The church had a lot of power. The church and the state were one. And people, a certain group of people felt like there was no room to think freely, act freely. So there was a time, an era called the Enlightenment. And there was a huge focus on music, creativity, and philosophy. So we had many French philosophers influencing different parts of Europe. And Germany, which I'll touch upon later. By the way, to the German viewers and listeners, Guten Tag. We'll spend a little bit more time talking about why Germany is so important in the development and creation of the Illuminati.
Ooh, I didn't know this.
Ooh. So, during this Enlightenment period, secret societies were born out of a socio and economic struggle. So there was a lot of frustration amongst the people, and a lot of that frustration was basically because of religion.
Yeah.
And one of the first groups, now this is another thing that was interesting for me. You didn't just have Freemasons. You had different groups like the Freemasons who would have meetings in secret places.
Lodges,
exactly. And these secret meetings were basically where they could express themselves, share mutual thoughts and feelings. Some of the ulama say the earliest form of secret societies were actually found in Scotland.
Yeah, Scotland's got some significant information related to it.
Yeah, so
around the Grand Lodges and stuff in that period.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And some of them even go back to the Middle Ages, which was very interesting for me. Any thoughts?
This is such a vast topic.
It is.
And I don't want to, because I think I've already learned stuff from it. I think a lot of people watching this would have come across this. There's so many different, it becomes like a web. There's so many different places this all goes in terms of its origins. You're touching on one era of it, which is fascinating. And then you go back, you mentioned the medieval era, that's another era of it. And then you go back before that to ancient times.
Yeah.
And so the origins of it, they just come from so many different places. And like you say, then it splits off into all these just different subgroups.
Exactly.
Within subgroups.
100%.
And so only comment I would have on it is that I think something that I came across recently that someone said, and I think this is, I've come to think this is true. I think, like with a lot of things, there's probably Freemasons who are just like everyday people who are completely harmless, who are just part of a secret club because they just go there and probably do the odd meaningless ritual. In as much as
we can touch upon the rituals later as well, actually,
and they just probably talk about whatever they talk about and go home, and
they do a lot of charitable work as well.
I think that they're just doing something, and they're part of a fraternity.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
I think the higher up, which is what you're going to talk about, that's where it gets dicey.
It does. So Freemasonry was steadily expanding throughout Europe during this particular period, and it was an alternative to the free thinkers. And anyway, after looking at these details, I started to think of modern day religion, and during this period, a lot of the concepts such as music, creativity, exploring, philosophy, so on and so forth, they were actually deemed to be heretic in their nature. And if you look at, I can see, especially, I can see why the youth today see religion in the same way, in the sense that it kind of restricts one's thoughts and and
repressive.
Yeah, exactly. And we can touch upon that a little bit later. So fast forward a little bit. I'm going to talk about an area called Bavaria.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Which is now a part of Germany.
Yeah.
So the Illuminati was founded by a Bavarian professor called Adam Weishaupt. Not too sure if I'm pronouncing the second name correctly, but Adam Weishaupt. As a boy, he was a huge reader, and he read a lot of books by French philosophers talking about the Enlightenment period. Now, Bavaria at that time was also very conservative and heavily influenced by Catholicism as well. Now, Weishaupt also thought that the church was repressing freedom of thought. Now, apparently he said he wasn't against religion itself, but he was, and this is very interesting, he was against the way it had been practiced and imposed upon the people. Just to give you a little bit of background on good old Adam, he was a descendant of Jewish converts and was actually raised, now there's a difference of opinion here, but he was raised by his Protestant godfather.
Protestants at that time were known to be quite strict as well.
Exactly. Yeah. He was a professor of law, a professor of canon and natural law. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and people, please feel free to correct me in the comment section, but that is basically pertaining to the implementation of certain Christian law.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think canonical or canonical. Or,
yeah. Now, this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So, Adam Weishaupt, I don't think he started off with a malicious intention, but he definitely ended up there.
Oh dear.
So what happened was the Freemasons had an established infrastructure. So they had these lodges, they had the rituals, and the emphasis was on secret knowledge, right? And the secret knowledge, believe it or not, actually came from religious texts.
Yeah.
So they looked at the Bible, they even looked at the Quran.
Yeah.
So anyway, Weishaupt, being the conniving individual he was, joined certain groups of the Freemasons, and there wasn't just one particular group.
Yeah,
there were different factions.
Yeah.
But what he wanted to do, he wanted to join different groups to basically steal their ideas, their rules and regulations, the systems. He wanted to understand the processes of the Freemasons. Now,
it's like a real takeover.
Basically, what he ended up doing, and this is how the Illuminati were born, he basically thought the Freemasons were... He thought their manhaj was a bit weak. Basically.
They didn't have a very good creed.
No.
Wasn't
methodology. Their methodology had basically holes in it.
Right, okay.
And because of that, he developed the Illuminati. So the Illuminati were founded in 1776.
Incidentally, bang on the same time as US independence.
Exactly. Ooh. Might mean something, it might not mean anything. What else can we say? In 1780, the Illuminati recruited a man who became a very influential member. Adolf.
Really?
Carnegie.
Oh.
But it's all in the name. He was... Again, he said he shared similar frustrations to Adam in the sense that he felt the Freemasonry movement again wasn't executing things properly, and their philosophy could be tighter, their practices could be tighter. Again, any thoughts?
So I like what you've done because you've gone into origins of one particular place in one particular area. I think obviously you're probably going to get to it, and we're talking about it anyway.
Yeah. I
think the other thing that's interesting, and I think the term Illuminati, it's just a term to really describe the fact that there's a belief that there's secret people in charge of things in the background.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because apparently it comes from the Latin word illuminatus, which means enlightenment.
Yeah.
So I don't think, and again, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but this misconception that is to do, is connected to devil worship, is connected to the New World Order. We can talk about all these conspiracy theories in a second.
I think it is and it isn't.
Yeah. No, we'll definitely touch upon that.
It's very complex.
The one thing I wanted to emphasize was this: they were literally bombarded by religious practices.
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at militant Christianity.
So what they were like militant Christians tried to shut them down?
No, we'll get to that.
We'll
get to that later. I think what I'm trying to say is that a lot of this free thought stemmed from, man, we're not allowed to express ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think, any human being, if you isolate them to that degree and you prevent them from having a discourse,
this is what happens. Yeah, I think there's partly that. I think these people definitely had an agenda, and some of these people did really, really odd, grim things in secret that made them, like, they've gone so far down a path that they couldn't return. And they were given certain control in exchange for doing those things. And as a result, you know, whether you believe in the devil or not, it's that they've made a deal with the devil in a sense.
Well, this is very interesting now, just to touch upon the latter part of history. The Illuminati started off with only 5 members in 1776. Now, the criteria, the prerequisites to become a member were very interesting. You had to be a Christian. You had to be a Christian. You had to have a good reputation. You had to come from a good family, and you had to be wealthy.
But so apart from the Christian part, I think all of those things are still the case because,
Carnegie, Adolf Carnegie ended up changing a lot of it. And Adam Weishaupt wasn't happy at all. So in order to truly expand the movement, this is what Adolf did. He allowed people of other religious backgrounds to join the group.
Right, okay.
And therefore, obviously, the Illuminati became more powerful, they grew in number, and ultimately they were able to establish themselves properly. So, started off with 5 members. In 1782, they had 600 members. So like I said, when they first started, the faction was very limited in number because of Weishaupt's principles, that they had to be Christian, they had to be wealthy, so on and so forth. Then the membership expanded to noblemen, politicians, doctors, lawyers, jurists, as well as intellectuals and also some writers.
It's still people high up in the food chain.
100%. But they're not, they're not going to recruit roadmen.
Yeah.
And then by the end of 1784, the Illuminati had 2,000 to 3,000 members
in less than 10 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So this is talking about the sort of hierarchy. There were 13 degrees of initiation divided into 3 classes. So the higher the class, the more you'd be exposed to
weird stuff.
Yeah.
What was happening at the 13th degree?
Well, this was really, to be honest, it was really hard to find. I'll be honest with you. It was really hard to find concrete evidence that suggests they were doing weird things.
Like sacrificing people.
Like devil worship and stuff. And we'll touch upon that just after these few points. So, in March 1785, the group were basically banned. Yeah. They were banned. And following this particular period, the governing body, the government at the time, basically allowed the police to arrest members if they found any members out in the open, practicing principles from the movement. So Bavarian police found documents including a defense of suicide, atheism, a plan to create a female branch of the order, invisible ink recipes, and medical instructions for carrying out abortions. Yeah, this is it. I mean, some of it's innocuous. Yeah. For the time it would have been scandalous to think of atheism, but that's not, for me, that's not necessarily a problem in comparison to the other things on that list. Definitely. Some of that other stuff's pretty, invisible ink isn't a major issue. Yeah. But the other stuff, because we've got invisible ink, it's a breakthrough. It's actually It's true.
Some of the other stuff is quite scary, It really is. It's a bit...
It really is. So, in August 1787, Theodore, who was the Duke Elector, imposed the death penalty for membership. So they were obviously forced to shut down. They were no longer functional. And Weishaupt lost his post at the University of Ingolstadt, and he was banished. He moved and he continued to write books and teach philosophy. That's basically the end of Weishaupt, and this is where the rumors start.
Go on.
So one of the biggest, I would say, one of the most important pieces of history is this. Many people thought the Illuminati had a hand in the French Revolution.
Yeah, that's a proper popular theory.
That was, I would say, the biggest conspiracy theory. So some even said that Weishaupt had met French revolutionary leaders, which obviously brought about the French Revolution. Now, I looked into this conspiracy theory, and I'm not too sure how concrete it is, man.
Well, okay, I mean, it fits nicely together as a narrative because basically France is like very secularist, very non-religious, very anti-religion, very secular, very, enlightened in inverted commas when it comes to a lot of these things, more so than I think probably anywhere in Europe.
Yeah.
I think if the hat fits, but the thing with the like I say, the thing with the Illuminati stuff and the Freemason thing is, when it comes down to it, do you believe there's secret societies? Forget controlling everything. Do you believe there's powerful people in secret societies who are doing certain weird rituals that they think represent certain things?
Well, here's something that's interesting.
I do. Just put it out there. I do believe that.
You believe that?
Yeah, I think there's enough information out there to suggest that that's the case. Now, the second aspect of that is, do you think that they are doing this to harness power and to all, as a collective control?
I mean, if you look at it, humanity. To be honest with you, look, EDL at one point were a secret society.
Yeah.
Maybe certain hip-hop groups at some point were...
Yeah, but I suppose the difference between them and the Illuminati / Freemasons is their activities aren't secret.
Yeah.
Right? So as soon as they become public, it's very clear what they're doing.
Now,
everything the Freemason up until today is a very secretive. You can't, unless you become a Freemason, you're not allowed to know what goes on. And it's only in more recent times that through things like social media and access to knowledge in general, it's trickled out. Now, I think there's a lot of nonsense in there, and a lot of theory, and a lot of ifs, buts, and maybes. But the point is, there's got to be some truth in there, and it's trickled out over time that there's definitely some weird stuff that they get up to, and there's definitely been some really, really, really prominent people in society going back hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Up until today that are Freemasons. There's in fact a list in the Da Vinci Code.
Yes.
At the start of the book. And there's Da Vinci's in there, but there's other famous people of the time in there.
Yeah.
And I've been fascinated by it, and I do think that these people do really weird rituals.
Now, I
do think there's something very odd, very evil.
What's your take on
going on?
People like Kanye, people like Jay-Z, Beyonce. Yeah. Do you think they're a part of this secret society, or do you think they're just trying to get more album sales?
I think that a lot of people in the music industry and the film industry
are weird,
are very vain, very vacuous, and very desperate to keep their position, right? And particularly those who have come from relatively nothing, which majority of them have.
Yeah. I
think that people above them in production, in everything else, in direction, tell them to do certain things as part of their persona.
Yeah.
And so that's why you end up with these anomalies and these weird things. And then I think, of course, now and again, some of the people who get to the top of their industry are probably invited in to start learning about some of this stuff. And as we know, Hollywood's just outside of secret societies is a very sick
That is true.
place. There's a lot of sick stuff that comes out that goes on.
No, you're right. You're right, man.
Secret. So it wouldn't surprise me that there's people in those circles with power and money that say, hey, come and join us and you'll get all this protection and you'll get all this wealth and you'll get more status. And, you know, in exchange for that, we need you to do certain things or we need you to witness certain things. And we can't tell you the meaning of it until you join us and until you go up in the ranks. That's plausible to me.
Do you think there's magic and sorcery and all that kind of stuff?
As it, we believe. Look, this is not be. Let's not get away from the fact that we as Muslims believe in a kind of magic.
100%.
we just popularized the term black magic, as in the term that people would understand. Yet the dark arts, Muslims believe that there's people out there who perform dark arts and perform what they would consider as magic.
Yeah.
As in the people doing it genuinely believe that it has an effect. We believe it can have an effect or cannot have an effect based on a number of factors, I suppose, that are, it's just impossible to go into on this episode. Point being is I think there's people out there who are potentially powerful who do think that what they're doing does have an effect on others and on the world. So, I mean, yeah, we agree with David.
Yeah.
And we agree with Ike a little bit on this.
No,
right?
You're right.
There's definitely people out there. Look, we know that there's positive energy and negative energy in the world.
Yeah.
And we definitely believe there's people out there who harness positive energy through doing lots of different things. And we feel there's people who harness negative energy through doing lots of negative things. And, I believe that there's people out there who are powerful, who do weird stuff and quite horrible things. And also there's quite a bit of evidence in the mainstream to tell us that that's the case, with the lots of the scandals that's come out about politicians and the child abuse cases.
Very true.
It's too coincidental that there's so many powerful people who are involved in that stuff. Like, it's just so weird. Like, how many powerful people are consistently linked to, like, insane amounts of doing this. It's not like one politician did one thing. It's like politician after politician after politician linked with, like, going to children's homes or, like, going to whole institutions.
You're right.
Like, on a mass scale. Equally, things like, the BBC scandal. Yep. Again, media, people in high positions where they're protected. It's basically government media. It's funded by the taxpayer. And then all these harassment scandals that have come out from Hollywood. What you see people in Hollywood and people in the music industry going through when they fall off and they have, like, a breakdown, and, they say that they're going to expose everything that's happened to them, and they go missing, or they go even madder. They get even more. So, like, there's so many theories out there about things that have happened to, like, people in Hollywood where they've said, I'm going to come out and expose this industry.
Classic case.
And they just go off their head.
Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Have you seen some of his interviews?
Bits and bobs, yeah.
He basically ran away, didn't he, to Africa?
Yeah, he's like, I've got to get out of here.
And they were just making him do weird things.
Yeah. Well, he said, I know he told a funny story that they tried to ask him to dress up as a woman. Yeah. And he was like, I don't want to do that. And they were like, why? And he's like, because I don't need to do that. It's not part of my art or something. And they were like, yeah, but all the greats have done it. And he was like, well, then there's no point in me doing it then, is there? Which is quite a witty response. It is. But I think the point is, there's definitely people in media that have really sick intentions. And really, I mean, come on, whatever you are, whether you're religious or not, whether you're black, white, brown, or whatever place you're from in the world, young or old, if you've got some thought process, you would agree with some things that we say and disagree. But what is pretty obvious, I think, is there's a certain agenda in the media, right? And I'm maybe going off on a tangent here, but coming back, I think there's people like this, potentially in high positions in places like media and government, who push a certain agenda that is basically evil and does involve using things like music and films and politics and governance to control people, whether it's through feeding children ideas, feeding adults ideas, or governing with a certain idea to make certain things acceptable that shouldn't be acceptable, so on and so forth.
That I definitely agree with. And one final thing to mention, I said to my wife a couple of days ago that I'm going to cover the Illuminati with Imran. And she said, oh, did you see that certain hijabi vloggers were contacted by the Illuminati?
What?
Yeah, and I just thought to myself, how, when, why? Assalamualaikum. I'm from the Illuminati.
Assalamualaikum. Assalamualaikum, from the Illuminati. Really like your hijabi tutorials.
Strange one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that was clickbait, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's just...
Yeah. But, I don't know. I don't know if certain celebrities play on it. I mean, 1995, the remix of LL Cool J's I Shot Ya. He raps, Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. secret society trying to keep their eye on me. First of all, I was never a fan of LL Cool J.
It's a bit before our time.
He can't rap. Who else? Wu-Tang Clan spoke about the Illuminati. Dr. Dre spoke about the Illuminati New World Order. I don't know if that's for commercial purposes.
I think two things with hip hop, right? Is there's two things with this. Hip hop courts controversy, like constantly.
Exactly.
So they know that controversy sells. And number two, what's well documented is that in African American neighborhoods, before hip hop, there's like a melting pot of ideas and religion, because of the African influence, there was Muslims have always been a part of the African American community. There's Christians, there's people who are into sort of a version of Judaism.
True.
There's people who bring sort of African pagan practices. There's Nation of Islam. There's Rastafarianism. There's so many different things. There's black nationalism. There's Pan-Africanism. There was lots. They're just things we know about.
You're right.
There's lots of different things in the African American community in America. And I think, lots of things are discussed in passing in the street. People are handing out, if you look into it, apparently in New York, in places like Brooklyn and stuff like this, everywhere you went, there's people handing out pamphlets for different things. Different religions, calling to different things. Malcolm X's time, that was you got the guy in that corner is calling to Islam, the guy in that corner is calling to Nation of Islam, the guy over there is a Christian, the guy over there is a Jehovah's Witness. And I think with that, naturally, this stuff's going to get out into the open as well. And there's going to be discussions about, and then obviously you had the Malachi York movement as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of rappers were interested in it, if not influenced by it. There's a lot of 5%ers as well.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that all branches off into people's own personal journey. Would they put it in the rap lyrics just to sort of be just for their own personal, sort of bit of fun, and also to know that it's of course a bit of controversy amongst a certain circle? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because they said it, and they know that certain people are like, oh, that means something.
You're right.
I don't read massively into it. I just think that they know when they say that it grabs a certain audience.
No, it does. It does. And on a side note, the whole Iron Pyramid thing is actually nothing to do with the Illuminati. The Illuminati's logo is an owl.
The Iron Pyramid's a Freemason thing, right?
It is, yeah.
But the Iron Pyramid thing, what I will say with the Iron Pyramid...
Go on.
It is uncanny how much it appears.
Okay.
It's weird.
To wrap things up, 3 people you think, if the Illuminati were true, who would be a part of them?
As in what? In the whole world?
In the whole world.
The Queen.
Okay. Joe Rogan. He's got that.
Yeah.
No, but he has. He's got the thing.
Yeah, he has, hasn't he?
Yeah, and the eye.
So that's someone who's just playing on it just to make
of course.
people like us look like marks. So the Queen, the Pope.
Oh, the Pope. Go for 5.
Catholicism.
Yeah.
And
Blair.
Blair. Oh God. How did I miss Blair off? He's a major candidate.
We're going to end up saying the same people every week.
Yeah, but yeah.
Bush.
Well, no. Bush. His family are very connected because Aleister Crowley is his mother's grandfather or father. And just all I'm going to say, guys, just look up Aleister Crowley. Just go and look him up.
Who else?
Okay. Boris Johnson.
Boris Johnson. Yeah, I think so. And on that note, I think viewers and listeners, leave some comments. Let us know who you think is a part of the Illuminati. And final thing, Imran, the Illuminati. Is it a conspiracy theory? Or do you think there are secret societies governing the world?
If I was forced into a black and white answer, I would say yes, there is secret societies.
Okay.
But I think it's more nuanced. I think the truth lies somewhere in between. I think there's good people out there, and behind the scenes there's compartmentalized little groups of people trying to scheme
Yeah.
and doing weird stuff.
I would say the Illuminati are dead, but I do believe other secret societies exist. And on that note,
let us know what you think, and like and subscribe, and leave your comments in the comment section below.
as always, until next time,
Stay illuminated.